Welcome to License to Spend with Tim Whisler from the Whisler Agency. Immerse yourself in expert insights on financial strategies that will empower you to confidently navigate your way to retirement freedom. Join us on this journey towards financial confidence. It's time to take control of your financial future.
Welcome to another episode of License to Spend, the show where we help remind you that it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Tim Whisler. If it's your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. We're so glad you've tuned in today. If you have joined us in the past, thanks so much for coming back. Today, we're diving into a risk that doesn't show up on your investment statements, but it could still do some serious damage to your retirement. You know, cybercrime is no longer just a problem for big companies or tech-savvy millennials. Today, retirees and pre-retirees are some of the top targets, and the scammers are getting smarter, faster, and more convincing than ever. Joining me today is a white hat hacker, yes, a good guy in the hacking world, and he's here to walk us through the real-world threats that could compromise your financial future and the simple steps you can take to protect yourself. I've learned so much from Kirk over the years since I've known him, and I'm just excited for him to be with us today. He is a friend. He's a longtime client of my practice who is absolutely brilliant in what he does for a living. He has worked in information technology since 2001 and currently works as a technical product engineer at Broadcom Carbon Black. He helps customers lock down their production environments across the medical, legal, and private sector, working with large corporations protecting their laptops and desktops across thousands of devices worldwide. He teaches his customers how to do threat hunting across their devices and helps them to lock down their proprietary information and intellectual property. He holds 12 industry certifications, including the MCSE, the Microsoft System Certified Engineer, and the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker certifications. It is an honor to introduce you to Kirk Hasty. Kirk, thank you so much for being here again today, brother.
Hi, Tim. It's great to talk to you again.
Thank you. I tell you what, I just chuckle as I'm reading this. I can't even understand half of the things I'm reading about you. So I'm just so excited that you're here and just you sharing kind of your expertise as far as what we can learn today and share with our audience.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to everybody.
So I kind of thought, again, I just appreciated the outline that you shared with me here. So I kind of thought what we do is kind of break this down again, like we were talking off air. You know, we don't want to overwhelm or terrify anybody. Just simply want to make people aware. Again, I've learned so much from you just in our conversations, and just when we kind of can be aware of certain situations, I think it can really give us some confidence about what to keep our eye on, and I think just going to help protect our identity the best that we can.
Yeah, I agree. Protecting your information is critical. A lot of people don't take the right steps, which we'll talk about today, some of the steps that you can do, but you should protect your information. You protect other things that you consider valuable in life, that your identity and the money that you've worked so hard for all of your career is important, right? And you should take the right steps to make sure you're doing all you can on your side.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. So I think we'll just kind of kick this off here, because again, you've spent nearly 25 years of helping people understand and defend against cyber threats. Again, just trying to keep this at high level, what's the biggest blind spot you see when it comes to how everyday people, maybe even especially retirees, approach online safety?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is simply thinking this won't happen to me. I'm a small target. I'm nobody out there compared to some companies that make millions or billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But these attackers, they go after everybody, big and small. And when you're talking across thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, it adds up to a huge amount of money, right? They'll take everything you have and just move on to the next target. It's not, a lot of times it's not even personal, though sometimes it is personal against somebody. But a lot of times it's just it's sheer numbers. It's just try to get as many as they can. And so a lot of people just don't assume that this would happen to them. So it's something you need to consider, that you lock your door at night. Why would you not try to protect your information online and things like that?
That's a good point. Why do you think that digital risks often get overlooked in retirement planning?
So when I've talked to people in finance and stuff, everybody in financial planning, and Tim, you'd obviously know this, they're focused on growing wealth. but you also have to protect what you have.
Yep.
And protecting your wealth is one thing, but also protecting your identity that has access to your wealth is where people tend to get a little lax. Sometimes they're focused on watching their statement go up or down, and hopefully up in the long term, but what you don't focus on is your identity and your accounts out there, and how, where are you spending time online, and are using the same username and password on multiple sites, things like that really get people into trouble real quick. And also, like, people, you insure your home, you insure like your cars. So this is just, you should try to think about how would I have insurance on my online identity? I need to protect that. That's me, right? That's my information. And it's easier than ever to try to fake people out to get that information, or to try to steal it. And so you have to do your diligence to protect it as much as you can. And then you also have to, of course, when you're dealing with other companies, you're hoping they also have cybersecurity people and people invested to protect those things. But you also need to do your part.
Absolutely. Yep. Good point. Um, as we were preparing for today's conversation, I sent over a couple of questions. Can you think of an example where maybe someone lost a significant amount of money because they didn't recognize a cyber risk?
Yeah, so there's lots of them online if you look for them. I read recently, and I'd have to find the link, but a retiree basically lost $15,000 in about 48 hours because a tech support scam, right? Somebody called and said, we need to get onto your machine. The scammer basically spoofed a real company. And these things always, when you get into these kind of things, there's always a sense of urgency. That is a crucial thing to be aware of. It seems very basic, but these attackers or spammers that are sending these phishing emails or that are attacking, in voice, something's wrong and it has to be fixed urgently. They don't want to give you time to think about it, of like, well, why would my bank reach out to me, or why would the IRS reach out to me, or this company? Microsoft does not reach out to people. And Tim and I had a discussion 3 years ago on this, and I said it, and it's still the same. Microsoft is not going to call. They do not care if Kirk's account gets compromised. They're way too big. They do not reach out to you. So Microsoft is never going to contact you. So, but they create that sense of urgency where they don't give you a lot of time to think and try to make you panic, and we can help you, but you got to move quick or you're going to lose access to things. So, and especially older people are really targeted with urgency, right? Older people tend to trust sometimes more, and then they try to use that urgency of not giving you time to go talk to family or think about it, right? They don't want to get you off that line if they're talking to you on the phone.
And that's a good point. Just the way you said that, I jotted that down when you said that. That sense of urgency, just almost like it's like they're playing, or I should say, preying on your vulnerability, preying on your emotions. Like, oh, this is bad. I better do something right away.
Right. And if you were going to lose your information, it is important to move fast, but it's also important to think. And I've got to think about, what am I doing? And I'm not going to just, if I get an email with a 1-800 number, I'm not going to just call that number, right? I should look it up. Look up, use Google, go find, if you're going to call, let's say, Charles Schwab, for example, for your financial stuff, go look up Schwab's number. Don't trust a number in an email, or don't click on a link and respond back. You always want to reach out to these companies, and then you can ask them, but you called their valid 1-800 number and are talking to a representative. It's just a lot safer than just don't trust emails and phone calls. And again, there's always that sense of urgency. If you've seen scam emails and stuff, they're always trying to make you move very quickly. You're going to lose access within the hour or whatever. It's always an emergency.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I just kind of jotted that down as well. Just do some research, validate things. Just take a moment, take a breath, and just make sure, hey, who is this source trustworthy?
Right.
Is this a scam? It's like, I didn't ask you this off camera, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but a movie, one of my favorite actors out there, just for one of those movies where you can just go to a movie theater, grab a popcorn and soda, and just shut your brain down and be entertained for a couple hours. I enjoy Jason Statham movies. And he did a movie a couple of years ago called The Beekeeper. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I've not.
But it's right up your alley, because it's very, very sad. At the very beginning of the movie, it's all about this lady who actually gets her retirement accounts just drained. And the camera keeps going back and forth between her and her at her kitchen table on her laptop, not understanding exactly what's going on. And then they're showing the scammer And he's like in this big, huge room full of all kinds of people. They're all on the computers, and his microphone is hot. Everybody can listen to him, and they're just laughing and carrying on. He's draining her dry, and it crushes you. It's horrible, because we know that that's very real, what's going on
Yeah,
today.
that is real. They've shown they've captured some people in data centers or in buildings where they'll have 100 cell phones in front of them, and they're texting 100 different people, all trying to do scams. And you think you start to get to know whoever it is to try to talk to you. We'll talk about that in a little bit later about trying to build trust, because that's something some scammers do too. Not everybody does go the fast approach. That's the fast, easy money, but sometimes they try to build trust first and then take money. And that's another thing to just be aware of when you're thinking about your identity and your information and your money.
Good. That's a good point. So, from your perspective, what would you say, like, for example, you'd mentioned, our identity, our information is out there. So again, talking to our audience who tunes in, and we talk about retirement planning on a regular basis, what would you say, Kirk, how secure are things like retirement accounts and brokerage platforms or even tax software?
Yeah, so brokerage accounts, most of those all do have cybersecurity people working there. They do encrypt their data. They have to follow certain standards, so which is great. So they're most of the time doing their due diligence. A lot of times it falls on the people, us, aka us, all that we're talking right now and listening. We're the ones that aren't doing a lot sometimes, right? We're the
Right.
weak link, unfortunately. That's why we're the ones that get fished, not necessarily the companies.
Yeah.
So using two-factor authentication. We talked about this 3 years ago, Tim. That's still a crucial, and if you're not sure what two-factor is, that means I verify my identity, but then I also have to verify something else that I have on me. Like you probably all have had, you get a text message, right, and enter the
Mhm.
code.
Mhm.
Or you use an authenticator app like Google Authenticator, which is free, or Duo, which is free. You'll get a 6 or 7-digit code there that changes every 30 seconds. So that way, if Kirk suddenly logs in from China, and Kirk's not from China, Kirk would also need that 6-digit number, right? That protects you. You every account you should use two-factor. You should do it on your email, because your email account is associated with your thing, right? So email is an easy
Yeah.
thing to go after. A lot of people get very lazy and have a very weak email password. It's one of the easiest ways to go in, and if attacker has that, they can get your information a lot easier, right? Email and phone, right? So you need to protect those things with a good password, and use two-factor on those, and use two-factor on all your financial accounts as well. And if your financial provider doesn't offer two-factor, ask them why they don't. I would encourage you to. The big ones all will. They all know they need to, right?
Yeah.
You need to have that second piece of information, so that when Kirk calls in or Tim calls in and gets that information, he also has to provide some kind of other identification besides just saying this is Tim or this is Kirk.
Great point. Yes, very, very good. And that's a good call to action too for people listening in, making sure that, hey, if our information's out there at a bank or a brokerage account, wherever, insurance company, wherever, making sure that they're taking the steps that they should be, just like Kirk said. And if they're not, ask them why. That's a good point.
Yep.
Um,
And then also quick, use strong passwords, and use
yes.
because passwords, I'm amazed. I see a lot of people's passwords. People even give them to me. I'm like, you don't need to give me your password, but they think somehow I'm going to tell them it's bad. And yeah, usually I do, right?
Right.
So when you're creating passwords, use something like a password manager. I'd suggest 1Password is what I use. But use an online password manager that randomly generates, and every password you have should be unique. And Tim and I talked about this 3 years ago, and I still tell everybody the same thing. If you're intimidated, and I got a lot of passwords, you don't have to go reset them all now. Go download something like 1Password, get started with it, change 1Password each month when you log in and pay something, change that password to a new strong one, unique. The first thing attackers do, right? If you have your LinkedIn and your email passwords, and all of these passwords are the same ones, which a lot of people have, then as soon as if they compromise your LinkedIn account, for example, then they're going to go try that username and password on your email account, your financial account, and all that. And so when you're using that same password, you're basically handing them. You're making it way too easy for them. If somebody gets one of
Goodness.
my passwords, it's 1Password, but it's a unique one that's only on that site. And again, the easy way to keep track of that is a password manager, something like 1Password or something that has all the passwords. You only have to remember one master password. You need to make it very strong, and it's one password you will never forget, type
Yep.
of thing. And use passphrases and stuff as well. That seems pretty easy. But what I mean by a passphrase, like the cow jumps over the moon in 2050,
Right.
something like that doesn't make sense necessarily, because there's also, I don't want to get too deep here, but there's things like dictionary attacks. If you use a word that's in the dictionary, something very easy like spring, for example, dictionary attacks can be hacked very quickly. But when you put things together in a phrase like that, that seems meaningless, those are sometimes the best passwords because
Okay.
there's no dictionary or anything that would have those, right? So
Gotcha. So just a spinoff on that. So like for example, if a password manager says, hey, here's this, use this as your password, and it's just basically a random string of alphanumeric stuff,
yep,
that's okay too, right? Using
that's
it
a
something
good
like that.
password. Yep,
Okay.
that's a good password. Yep. Some
Is
people like that. Some people still want to come up with a phrase to
sure.
something they may be able to remember. Either one works. You just don't put your kids' names
Right.
or like at work,
The
it's
dog.
notorious when you work somewhere that if it's spring 2025, everybody in summer, guess what the new password is going to be? Summer
Right.
2025, right? When
Yep.
people do that, right, those are just low-hanging fruit. The attackers will have those immediately. So
Yep. Gotcha. So, like we talked about here on the intro, and like you and I have talked before, this thing just constantly is ever evolving. It's amazing what we do. So, what do you think are some ongoing threats and scams for us to kind of watch for here in 2025?
yeah, so a lot of them are the same, but they're getting better. So one of those is phishing, right? Phishing is still one of the most common things. So somebody sends you an email. It used to be super easy. There'd be a lot of misspelling sometimes from some of these other countries, or the grammar was terrible in it, because a lot of them weren't, U.S. citizens, for example. It was super easy to pick out and say, "Yo, yeah, come on, you're not going to fall for this." Now with AI, especially, you can you can get a very good, even somebody who's not an English speaker can write the perfect phishing email that looks um, very close, right? It'll have all the grammar will be correct because it'll fix all that, right? And so
Yeah.
they just tell it. So language isn't a barrier anymore. So it's not going to be quite as easy. The other thing with are things like deep fakes, which kind of go in hand to hand with phishing. So deep fakes, right, are like digitally altered audio or video recording that uses AI to make somebody appear to say something or do something maybe they never actually did. Um, AI is so good now that also if let's say if Tim wrote, I'll just pick on Tim. If Tim wrote blogs and we knew Tim's writing style, after a while you can point AI to Tim's blog and say, I want to write an email and I want to use how Tim says and interacts in that and use his phrasing and words. And you can craft an email that will look like Tim wrote it because it takes his style, it takes his personality, right? It takes all those things. The more writing you have, so there's a lot of people have written a lot of things online, right? So it'd be pretty
Yeah.
easy to point to it and say, yeah, I want to craft an email and make it sound all the things that Tim would say, so that it really looks like it could have come from Tim. This is again why you don't click on links, things like that. If
Right.
Tim reaches out to you, get an email, hey, I may want to call Tim, or I want to verify that that was truly from Tim. If Tim asked something that, why would Tim ask that? I'm not sure.
Right.
I could be getting phished or tricked, right? And so that's where you'd want to reach out and talk to somebody. So even though we've had AI and deep fakes and things before, they're getting better and better with AI because it can study people's behaviors and patterns and match. So it's not as easy as it used to be. And the bad thing is people used to fall even for some of the pretty bad ones sometimes. Again, that sense of urgency, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Um, Another one too, and it's interesting when you mentioned deep fakes because I'll keep this short.
Hmm.
But whenever I attended my spring workshop a year ago for my Ed Slot Elite IRA Advisor Group, one of the segments of the day and a half we were there was called Schemes and Scams. And I can't recall the publication that this gentleman writes for, but he got in front of the room and almost word for word said exactly what you said. He's addressing a room full of advisors from all across the country. There's 250 of us there in this room. Generally we're just speaking about IRA things, but we kind of broke away from that to talk about what now I understand to be a deep fake. And he said, for those of you who have a podcast, and of course I, raised my hand sheepishly, like, yeah, that's me. For those of you who do radio advertising, for those of you who have TV, spots, even if you just have emails, he goes, you got to understand how AI is taking away and stimulating you. And he was talking with a microphone. He goes, I'll show you exactly what I mean. He takes the microphone down. He visually takes away from his mouth. And then you hear his voice again across the system. He's not speaking. He's standing there just looking at us, but it's him speaking. I guess he'd used AI to share like a quick 30-second message, and then he put the microphone back up to his voice, his mouth, and started speaking again. You could not tell the difference.
Right.
And I mean,
Yep.
it was terrifying. I'm thinking,
Right.
here I am doing podcasts. Now we're doing a TV show. We've got radio ads out there. It's just absolutely terrifying to think what could possibly be done if somebody gets a hold of and impersonates me and sends something out, not only
Right.
not for the sake of harming my clients, but, reputation and content. It's just really, really incredible how much more advanced it's getting.
Yeah. And that's why we have to just think, be careful, try to do the things you can do. There's some things you can't stop necessarily, but to do those. There's some other ones that are pretty big right now too, like something called pig butchering is in crypto and investment scams. So pig
Wow.
butchering, this is what I was hinting at earlier. This is where people try to build trust up with you. So this especially happens to older people. Not always, but older people tend, if they're lonely and things like that, right, they're targeted. People who have money and that are lonely get targeted, and they start, the victim, basically, they start emotionally and financially draining their savings, kind of like what you were saying in the movie. And that is definitely true. And it's called pig butchering because, like a pig, you kind of fatten it up for the slaughter. You start getting this person to trust you, right? So this person who's doing this probably to lots of people will start trying to build trust. They care for you. You have things in interest in common. We start talking. You become friends, or maybe even romantic type of discussions with certain people that are lonely. And then usually then it comes up again to that sense of urgency. Suddenly an emergency happens to them. They've got to have some money. You've got to help them. They're in a really bad spot. Now you're a friend. Like, you can't just, it's hard to turn them away because now you know this, you feel like you know this person, right? And so they're preying on your emotions and trust, that we normally trust people and assume most people are good, and most people are, but there are people that are not. And this is just a current scam that goes, and people can get wiped out. They give away just tons of money before they realize this is something that's scam, or they may get and they don't give them again time to talk to families. I need this quickly.
Right.
I'm going into emergency right now. The hospital won't accept without the funds, or whatever it is, right? So it's always an emergency thing. They don't want you to go back and talk to somebody else and ask about this, because most people, if somebody was lonely and older, somebody would probably, hey, wait a minute, you could be getting scammed, right? They don't want you to get to that point, right? So they build all that trust and stuff up, and then an emergency suddenly happens. So something to be aware of. And then also on the crypto side, there's fake apps and platforms that have just spun up out of the blue. People suddenly hook their bank account up to it and think they're going to start doing crypto trading and send money right to somebody illegally. So this is where, again, you need to do that research ahead of time. Look on Google, look for reviews, look and see who are established people that have traded, if you're going to trade things like crypto and stuff that isn't as regulated as like the FDC and some of the other things. Like in the stock market has a lot more regulations in place. Crypto, you can make a lot of money, but you also can lose a lot of money quick, and there's not near the regulations because it's worldwide. So you don't want to just get in a fly-by-night app that you've never heard of. So just be careful.
Definitely. And one more thing too, I really was looking forward to you touched on this one too. Tech support scams and the government and IRS impersonation.
Yeah. So Microsoft, again, will never call you. These tech support, the IRS doesn't call people and suddenly need money and things like that when you've been paying your taxes like a regular person. So those things, and they're always, again, demanding action. We need something immediately. Things, your account's going to get shut down. We're going to turn off your electricity, whatever, right? The IRS isn't doing any of those things, right? And so those things are kind of red flags. They'll also sometimes ask for remote access. We'll remote into your computer and fix it. Microsoft, nobody like that is remoting into your computer and fixing it, right? You need to get hold of somebody if you want somebody to fix your computer, and somebody you trust. You don't want any random person to be able to have remote access because people will, if they can get in, right? You may have accounts and things like that, but you may even have things like family pictures and stuff that they can take and then try to hold against you, right? Demand payment or something. So you want to be careful about that. Gift card payments. I've seen a lot of gift card things. A lot of people try to get gift cards because gift cards aren't traceable. Visa and everything, right? If you pay somebody with a Visa or somebody, you could call the Visa company and get that canceled potentially, and that attacker may not get that, but a gift card to wherever, they don't care about that, right? So gift cards are a way to, again, just put $500 on it and send me this gift card, and it's gone, right? You've lost your $500 or whatever it is at that point. And then always, if you ever answer the phone and then you start to think you're getting scammed, hang up and then call like the official number. If you really thought you were talking to the IRS, I'm going to hang up and then get hold, Google and find how do I get hold of the IRS and call and see. Likely they would tell you the IRS does not contact you, things like that, right? So
Yeah.
just try to be paranoid. It helps. Don't be overly paranoid where, but
Right.
there's a fine line, but you do want to assume, especially when you're talking about, financial things and your identity, things like that, you need to protect it, right? You got to do
Yeah.
your due diligence.
I mean, I just think what you just said there, I think it's a great point. Just, raise your skeptical level just a little bit. If something just doesn't sound too, right, something just does not feel right, question it.
Yep.
That's a great point. Definitely.
Yep.
You had also shared too in your outline some emerging threats that we may not know about. What are some of those, Kirk?
Yeah, so some of those are like I kind of mentioned it earlier, AI being able to mimic like writing style. So again, you can write like somebody else, or you can generate documents and make it sound like somebody else wrote it because you know their style. So that is becoming more and more popular, and that's where it's getting harder and harder for the phishing emails and some of those scams because it looks like it's real. And if you talk to this person, wow, it even sounds like it's their personality. It is their personality. AI is using that to its advantage, right? And so AI is not bad, but it's a tool like anything. If somebody who has bad intent is using it, it can be used in a bad way, right? And so the scams are faster, and more of the scams are getting more targeted. They used to just try to blanket and get people, and they still do. They still have blanket scams and things, but now a lot more are becoming targeted, and especially people. Let's be honest, like your audience, people who are older who have money, either one, it may be a combination or both. But when people that have money are going to be more targeted because that's what these attackers are after. They're not trying to go after somebody who is living on food stamps. They're not going to get much out of that, right? You're going to go after
Right.
people that has maybe retired and has a pension or whatever, right? And is getting steady payments. They're going to try to go after people like that. So,
Right.
and nowadays with things like even Facebook and all of those kind of things where you're on social media, if you're sharing, I'm going on vacations to Disneyland with my family every year and things like that, right? All those kind of things. That's not bad because you want to have memories and things, but those can be used against you too because if somebody's looking at your profile and stuff, they can start to say, well, I assume these people they have some money or that they go to family, they do trips. Right now, I also maybe know some relatives of theirs, so it's just something to be aware of. And then we said it, I think 3 years ago, and I tell everybody always on social media, anything you post, assume the whole world can see it.
Yep.
Whether you have that friends setting or whatever on any
Yep.
platform, just assume if I'm okay with everybody in the world seeing this and knowing this about Kirk, then that's fine. But if there's somebody that, boy, this could hurt my career down the road, or this would be a foolish thing if certain people would judge me or think differently if I showed them this, then just think of that perspective before you post anything because it is public for the world to see. So
Yep.
just keep that in mind anytime you post things.
That's a great point because I remember you sharing that again when we were doing this a few years ago. And even to this day, I jump on Facebook and somebody's like, well, here we are. We're jetting off to wherever we're going. And sure enough, it's live. It's like, people, hello, do not do that.
Right. Yeah, do it after, right? That's what we said
Yes.
last time. If you go on a trip, great. Then you can show your family pictures and we had a great time. But yeah, you don't say we're going to Disney for 2 weeks or whatever.
Yes.
You're basically letting everybody know your house, you're not there. And it just, yeah, you just
Right.
want to think about those things.
So you've kind of hit on a couple of these as I've been writing down some notes here. So again, if you're listening in today, if you haven't already done so, grab a pen and paper because Kirk's now going to share just some simple, actionable ways to protect yourself. And I know you kind of already, alluded to a couple of them, but Kirk, just share if you would, because it's easy to get lost in the weeds. It's easy to get overwhelmed, and it's the same thing that we do in our retirement income planning conversations. Let's just break down what we need to be aware of. And here's some things that we can do. So what would you say are maybe a couple, 2 or 3 steps that folks could maybe take today to kind of, again, boost their protection?
Sure. Yeah, there's a few pretty easy things. So the first one is turn on two-factor
Okay.
for all of your accounts that you can. Emails especially, but all your financial platforms, your bank, everything like that, you should have a two-factor. And don't just, I guess when I say that, also don't just say, remember on this platform. If you've ever seen that, when you set that up, a lot of times the sites will say, oh, remember me, and then you never have to do that again. You just defeated the whole purpose of having two-factor turned on.
Yep.
The whole purpose is if somebody logs in with China who's acting like Kirk Hasty on the call, acting like me, then I want to know, no, I still have to put that 6-digit PIN in. That doesn't take very long to put in a 6-digit PIN, but that helps assure that my account that is truly me and that I have my phone and then it's me doing that. So If you just check that box, you basically just undid everything. And so I've seen a lot of people do that because they're like, oh, it got kind of annoying that I had to keep putting that in.
Right.
Maybe,
Convenience.
but yeah,
Right.
it's not convenient when you lose all your data either,
It
right?
is
And
not.
then you're really mad, and you could have protected it with literally putting an extra 10 seconds to put in a 6-digit number.
Yep.
You want to weigh that. So the other thing is use a password manager. Use strong, unique passwords. We hinted at that earlier. And then I'd say the last one that people tend to forget is set up account activity alerts. So like on your bank and things like that, every single time I log into my bank, if I click anywhere in there, basically I get an account activity alert. Again, some people get annoyed. I don't want all these emails. Well, you can delete them later. The idea is, again, if I'm in the middle of the night and suddenly I get an email that says Kirk just logged into this bank, PNC Bank or whatever, and I didn't log into PNC Bank, I know something's wrong. I need to call PNC Bank and tell them, look, I did not log in. So they can help protect your information. Seems very basic, and it is, but it's super important to set that up on your accounts that you shouldn't just be able to log into your 401k and have no emails or no kind of alerts set up. So set up alerts. Super easy, and again, it just covers you. And then if you ever get an alert when you did not log in, you need to get hold of that institution and ask, hey, what just happened? I did not log in, and I just got an email on this or got a text message saying I did and I didn't. They can immediately start trying to protect your account or figure out what's wrong. So they'll start working for you, right? Which is what you want.
Yep. Awesome. Well, and again, I cannot believe how fast time goes, but here we are just about ready to close it out. But before we do, just wanted you to share a few more final thoughts, because I know one other bullet point you shared with me was the fact of this saying right here. I think this is really cool, and I think it's great for people to hear this. Cybersecurity is a life skill, not just a tech skill. Elaborate on that a little bit, if you would, please.
Yeah, so cybersecurity, right? People tend to think it's paranoia, and it could be a little bit, but it's also like I kind of hinted at earlier. It's a form of a smart protection, right? Like you lock your door at night. You don't go to sleep at night and not lock your door in your house.
Right.
You lock your car when you get out of it, and you're going to leave it for the night. Same thing here. Why would you leave it unlocked? Why would I not protect my account? I don't have to do too much if I could just turn on those few things that we said. I have those kind of protections in place. When I log out, I click on the log out. I make sure it logs out when I log out, that I've done my due diligence where it's not there anymore. So it seems pretty basic, but just think of it like locking a door. It's not a lot of work, but again, you don't just leave your door unlocked and go to bed at night and hope nobody comes in. I'm going to lock my door to make sure. So
Right.
I feel like that's super easy, and it's not paranoid. That's protecting. That's just being smart, really.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, Kirk, this has been, again, and I told you this before we jumped online, I was so looking forward to our conversation again. I learned so much. I appreciate your passion, your expertise, and sharing these little tips. And just as we close out, anything else besides these action tips, maybe a final thought you kind of want to share with everybody?
So when you're thinking about like retirement plans and stuff, think of it like as health insurance, right? You have health insurance. I think it's essential. You should have that. And one scam can erase decades of savings potentially. So doing these things preventatively ahead of time just puts you in a good spot. And then monitor your accounts a lot. I didn't say that earlier, but that's important too. Monitor your bank. Monitor if you, let's say your account's in Fidelity. Monitor your Fidelity account or wherever you have your 401k or pensions and all those kind of things, right? Monitor those things. Keep track of them. It's not something you just set and forget. You should be keeping track. Make sure that you know what's happening on those accounts. That's just protecting your assets, right? You're assuming the company will protect them, but you also can protect them, and you would be able to spot something maybe that somebody else wouldn't know, because again, you know when you're logging in and banking or when you're buying something. So I think that's important. And then I do have a couple sites that could help give you some information. So one of them is consumer.ftc.gov, and I think Tim will probably link these in the show notes. So I'll just say them.
Yep.
Then there's another one, aarp.org. And then under that, there's money scams and fraud. These are, by the way, always updated. So as
awesome.
new things come out, right, and new scams and stuff, they list those kind of things. So this will help people keep up on some of this. So that way, in a year or two, you still can kind of know what things are happening.
Good.
And then there's one other one. I don't know a lot about this one, but it's ssa.gov, my account. It's with the government regulates it. So these really are updated to reflect new threats, and then they also give some tools and guidance, but they're for average people. And I don't mean average being condescending, like average, like all of us that are just trying to do the basics to make sure we're in a good spot, right?
Absolutely.
And just doing a few basic things suddenly makes you not near as much of a target. It's the people that do nothing, right, are the easiest targets to steal from. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. And Kirk, again, brother, thank you again so much. Everything you do, I mean, just the way you pour yourself into it, you're continually learning, the designations you have, appreciate that. We need people like you in our world to protect us. So I appreciate that. And thank you again for taking time to join us this afternoon and share these great tips on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure. So again, folks, we share information consistently about how to protect your nest egg from losses. But protecting your nest egg from online threats might not be something you really thought about. But after today, I hope that it's clear just how important it really is. Take these tips that Kirk shared with us today and implement them. It may take a little while of getting used to them. But again, just take his ideas and his steps to take and take them to heart, because again, you worked for decades to build the portfolio that you have. We want to protect it because, like we said, cybersecurity is not just a tech issue, it's a life skill. And just like having a retirement income plan, being proactive today can help prevent regret down the road. For more information, again, you can visit us online at www.thewhisleragency.com. You connect with us by calling area code 309-291-0491 or by email at tim@thewhisleragency.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can be informed of when new episodes are ready for you. Thanks again for tuning in. Be safe, stay smart, and remember, it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. See you next time on License to Spend.
Thank you for listening to License to Spend. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The views expressed herein reflect the views of the Whisler Agency. As of the date of publication, these views may change as conditions change. The views expressed herein are not intended and should not be construed as investment advice, and they do not address any individual's specific situation. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Whisler Agency. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance, consulting, and education services are offered through the Whisler Agency. The Whisler Agency is a separate and unaffiliated entity from Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC. This podcast is designed to provide general information on subjects covered pursuant to IRS Circular 230. It is not intended to provide specific legal or tax advice and cannot be used to avoid penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement for insurance products, discuss guarantees, or backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company.